engineering competition next year, so this is more of a pilot. So, you guys remember Mr. Salinas, Jeff Salinas from ICE? He's done egg drop and he passed. And so now he's moving on to prosthetic arm.
Yep, yeah. So we did prosthetic arm
Last year.
Last year.
Yeah, last year. So,
So anybody do the prosthetic arm last year? No? Okay.
every other day.
So it's totally different this year anyway. Okay, so let's get started. Has anybody looked at the rules? So we're just going to be completely new to everybody. Completely new? Okay. Middle school, high school? Both?
Is it both?
Okay, everybody's mixed. Okay. So a little bit different, but it's actually the same. Additional competition for high school. So a little bit myself, Jeff Salinas. I work for Applied Materials here in the Valley, but I'm also part of an organization here called MIAS, Society of Mexican American Engineers and Scientists. And that's part of a passion. That's how I got involved with Mesa. Did anybody go to the national conference that you guys had here? Did it open for Mesa? No? No, it's probably for it's more the college students. Anyway, we partnered with Mesa this year to have a national conference. A little bit about Maya's, and our purpose is basically to encourage Hispanics, and primarily our chapter in the Bay Area, we really focus on K through 12 and trying to encourage them to go to college. And we have student chapters. We work really closely with the student chapters on the state, SOLAS, you guys know what that is. And we have chapters in Stanford, Berkeley, and all different universities. So let's jump into the competition. I went through the rules many times, and so I encourage you to do the same, encourage your students. The rules are very long, they're very kind of convoluted. I tried to reorganize them in a logical sense, for me anyway, but we'll see how it goes. But as it was mentioned earlier, this competition is kind of a trial competition. It's not going to be a national event this year, it'll be for next year. So they're trying to, I guess, get a lot of feedback from the advisors. So in the rules, I get one of the last sheets there is kind of a feedback form. So if you guys have any feedback on the competition, please utilize that. And then also this year for this event, the only thing that the students will be scored on is the actual device performance. So they're not going to be scored on the report or the interview or what else was their report interview, like the materials. They're not really getting any points for that. They're really just focusing, I guess, on the device performance this year. It's not to say that next year they're not going to include that, but this year it's not included at all. Each team must have at least two people, up to 4. And then again, as I mentioned, the rules are very convoluted, so the rules are the rules. If there's a discrepancy between this and the rules obviously supersede this presentation, but I hope it's pretty evident. They've also added, for whatever reason, an addendum for California. And I'm not sure why they specifically listed these out, but they did. Basically, they said that the teams must consider shipping the event the device. So I guess there's maybe concern the devices are going to be really big because it's just they have to take it apart and make sure it fits in large suitcases. So I don't know. It has to fit on top of the table, 6-foot table, so I'm not sure how big it would be. The next thing, and honestly, in every competition, every year, we always have this problem with labeling, so maybe I understand why that's there, is you've got to label everything. If you don't label your devices, you're going to get a 25-point deduction. There's actually 2 things that they have to label. So the arm itself, the device, and then the itemized budget sheet. Specifically, they say those 2 things must be clearly labeled. If not, there'll be a 25-point penalty. All the other rules are the same. And this last one, I'm not sure what I put in there, but basically it says the judges can interview the students and try to verify that they actually built the device. And if the judges feel like they didn't, then they can get 0 points. So that's the California demo. So here's kind of the meat of it. So the teams are going to build a prosthetic arm that mimics the movement of the wrist, the hands, and the fingers. So basically what they're looking for is beyond kind of the midpoint of the arm. Okay, and that's where the devices that we'll go on later will actually have to attach to the student's arms around the midpoint. There's actually 3 events. There's this strength efficiency, and I'll go into detail each one of these. Strength efficiency relay, and as it says it's a relay, so they're going to have to run back and forth. So we'll go into details of that. Object relocation task. In this case, they're going to be moving olives from a bowl into a elevated canister, and we'll talk about that. And then dexterity. Dexterity is going to be basically, they don't tell you what it is, but it's going to be some phrase that's written on paper, and they have to write it with pencil, and they have to stick inside the lines. So we'll show you some details of that. Now, the only difference between middle school and high school is that middle school will do the first 2 events only, and high school will do all 3. That's the only difference. And along the same lines, the scoring is a little bit different. For both high school and middle school, the maximum score you can get is 150 points. Because high school does 3, the breakout's a little bit different for each activity. So I'll go into each one of these activities after this. So general rules. The students are really the only people that can interact with the judges and the devices. So you guys know this, right? The teachers, parents, and they need to kind of just hang back and let the students speak for themselves, operate the devices for themselves, decide how they want to set up the device. All that needs to be done by the students. The participating team members, so whoever's operating the device for a given task, in order to prevent them from using their wrists and fingers, we're supposed to immobilize it. So what it says in the rules is they're going to put a wrist brace, and then we're going to wrap their hand with some type of band, I guess, and that's supposed to be provided by the center. And because of the way the competition's run, I think we need like 2 sets of that stuff per competition. So they can't use their hand or wrist at all. So they're kind of immobilized, but they have to attach the device to their arm. And then the last rule is they can use their other hand. They can put the device on either hand they want. The hand that does not have a device, they can use to set up the arm, but they can't use it to actually operate the device. So anything to set up, like get the table, move things around, they can use their hands. But once the timer starts, they can only use the prosthetic arm. Okay? More general. There's a lot of rules. We're going to randomly select who goes. This whole rest of the section is basically about when the kids bring in their devices, what they bring, and the fact that they can't really change it once they bring it. And that's pretty common, I think, across all the competitions, but there's a lot of verbiage in the rules, and I tried to read it out. Basically, whatever they bring in, there's 3 devices. And I'll mention later, the prosthetic arm doesn't necessarily have to be just one configuration. Because the tasks are different, you may maybe have a different attachment for the prosthetic arm. So you may have a hook for one thing, or you may have a rubber band for another. I don't know what it is, right? But when you bring in your device, though, you have to bring the whole kit of parts. So if you got a prosthetic arm with 4 different attachments that you're going to use, one for each of the different events or for each event, you got to bring the whole thing. Okay, you got to leave the whole thing. You can't show up later with a 3rd attachment or extra materials. So you have to have your arm, whatever attachments you're going to have, and then also any materials that you think you might need to repair the device have to be left with the device. So let's say you're doing an event and something breaks and you want to put some duct tape on there. Well, if you didn't leave it the first time, you can't go ask your friend or come back, from a different competition with duct tape and try to fix it. It's got to be, as they call it, impounded when they leave it. So I don't know how we're going to police that because there's so much going on with a lot of kids, but that's the idea, is they have to leave everything. And then another rule later will be that whole package of what they leave has to be under 2 kilograms. So the whole weight of all the attachments, all the devices, everything that we impound has to be less than 2 kilograms. So I kind of went through those fast, but you can reconfigure your device between tasks. You can repair, but the judge has to supervise so to make sure they don't use any extra materials that they didn't have initially. We'll inspect the device. Another thing that's kind of in the rules is that, and I don't know, maybe there's a concern with some devices not being safe to use, but before we impound a device, we want the kids to show us how they're going to use the device and how it works, just to make sure that it's safe. If we feel something's unsafe, then we can disqualify as well. So that's this only device passing inspection will be allowed. And I'll send this to you guys. Some kind of just hitting highlights. Okay, so materials. You can pretty much use any materials you want, except hazardous materials. The only one they specifically list is lead. I'm not sure why. So it's kind of going to be your judgment, the judge's judgment on what's hazardous or not, right? But obviously, the general things like no flammables, and I think in some of the rules they used to say like no animals, no things like that. I mean, we would probably disqualify that kind of stuff. So. I don't know what they mean by this, but they say all materials to a device are legal and optional. I don't know what they mean by optional. They're just trying to say you can use whatever you want. That's way out of the rules. Now the other part of the competition will be kind of the pricing and the budget. So you remember one of the two things you had to label, one was your device and one was that budget sheet. So you have to turn in the budget sheet. If you go over this $20 pre-tax limit for materials, you're going to be disqualified. So obviously make sure your total is not more than $20 for materials.
Can I ask a really bizarre question?
Sure.
How do you make it move if you're not allowed to touch anything?
I don't know.
I mean,
That's
is it like a
the-
mousetrap
Well,
arm,
yeah.
or you wind it up and it's got, you know, or
It
something
could be.
like
I mean,
that?
let's go through the challenges, and once you see them, maybe
It's just
it's something
like-
you don't have to move. Right? You can still use your arm. You still have the mobility of your arm. You just can't use your wrist or your fingers. So maybe some of the tasks are using the arm only.
I see.
How do you recognize the rest? I don't know. You got to figure out what else you can move above the mid forearm. So if you still got one joint here, you still got your shoulder joint.
Okay, so you do.
You can use any of these other devices to help you move. You just can't use, because remember, you're basically designed for somebody that doesn't have a wrist and a hand. So you can use anything else in your body except in your hand. That's going to be a pro. So back to, I would think I was on materials, one of the things the materials is $20. You know, in the past, we did the Prostetic Arm and other things. The materials is kind of a judgment call. I mean, obviously, you don't want the kids have to come up with realistic numbers for the stuff that they buy. If they get stuff for free, they have to put in a cost that would be a reasonable cost for that type of material. And it's by the amount they use. So if they buy a roll of tape for $1 and they use 10% of it, okay, it's a dime worth of material. So they have to calculate that way. That shut down because of
Well, if you, I think like 5 cents, 10 cents.
Gotta love Windows. I don't know. Well, it said it shut down properly, so I don't know. Let's see.
You really scan your finger?
Yes. It's got a little finger scanner there.
They're not gonna let it. They're eliminated.
Okay, so we'll go over the material sheet on this slide, I think. And then again, I just highlight again, if you don't, if you don't put in all the information on the budget sheet, you lose 25 points. I mean, one thing that was curious to me is that there's some other things you have to do, but you're only being scored on the performance anyway, right? But if you don't at least turn in a blank budget sheet with your name on it, you're going to lose 25 points. So let's make sure the kids turn that in. Here's from the rules, just one section of the material sheet, so you can see it's just very simple. Here's kind of what the part was. Here's how much of it I used. Here's the price of it, and then figure out the price per unit. And then they want you to also put kind of the source of where you got the pricing information. We'll just kind of scan it if it looks reasonable. We're not going to probably do a check unless something's outrageous and it's that close, then we have to do it.
Is this on his website?
Again, so anything that's free, you should still include it as this is what you would have paid for. Okay, so now let's get into the actual, I guess, some of these are redundant, I guess. Okay, so here's the model itself. So you got to design, build, and operate a prosthetic arm. You attach it halfway between the elbow and the wrist. So somewhere between here it has to attach. It says in the rules that it has to completely cover your hand and extend beyond the hand. So you got to imagine you're going to have this wrist device on that you can't move. We're going to cover your hand in this bandage, and then you're going to attach the device on your wrist, and it somehow has to extend beyond your hand. So, the money, and then the 2 kilograms, including all of the parts, right? That's like disqualification if it's more than 2 kilograms. And then you can't use the wrist, hands, and fingers. Okay, so here's the first competition of the 3. So this will be for middle school and high school. You're basically going to have a 10-meter long by 2-meter wide track laid out on the floor of the car. It might be a carpet or a floor. There's no restriction on the floor, and it is. And then on each of the corners, there'll be a table. So these boxes here represent a 6-foot table on each end. So here's the track. So the students are going to be running back and forth between one table to the next. Okay. What they're going to be using is this Comer's all-purpose bucket. So if you get a Home Depot, they've got the orange buckets that they sell there. It's a standard bucket you can buy. That's going to be the bucket they're using with the lid on top of it. So this is just a setup, so it looks like. Now this is kind of step-by-step of what's going to happen during the competition. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to measure the weight of the device itself. And the way I interpret the rules is, like I said, if they have one device with 3 attachments, we're only going to weigh the device plus the attachment that's used for that competition, okay, for the weight. Now there's a requirement for the total weight of everything, which is under 2 kilograms. For that, we're going to weigh everything. So every component of the prosthetic arm plus materials, all 3 prosthetic arms, if they have 3, have to be under 2 kilograms. However, for the weight for this specific competition, we'll only weigh the prosthetic arm with that end effector that they're using. Okay? They'll have 2 minutes to prepare the device, and they're going to fill this bucket with as much water as they want to fill. So they have to kind of decide for themselves. So the only way I can imagine them doing this is they have to try it at home first to figure out, well, how much can my prosthetic arm support? Right? So they kind of have to know ahead of time, this is where we can support definitely, and then maybe we can support a little bit more, but they don't want to try that on the first trial, maybe they don't do it on the second trial, right? So they prepare the device, they fill the bucket with as much water as they want to fill it, and they place the arm on the table and the bucket at the end of the 2 minutes. Okay, once that's done, the judges will then say, okay, everything's ready, go. So the first person, well, I've the rules here, they're going to have 5 minutes to go back and forth between the tables, and I'll tell you what they're going to be doing. And then there are going to be 2 trials. So of the 2 trials, we'll take the best score of the 2. Okay, so 2 minutes to prepare, 5 minutes to do the actual event, and then they'll have 2 trials. Okay. So what are they going to be doing? So the first team member, let's say this is the first table, that's the second table. The first team member will be outside of the work area. He doesn't have the prosthetic arm attached to him at this point. He's just sitting on the table. So within the 5 minutes, the person has to put on the arm, pick up the bucket, carry it to the other table, put it down, and then take off the arm. Now, when he takes it off the other end, there's going to be a second person there that now has to put on the arm, pick up the bucket, and then come back to the other table. And that continues for 4 times, or until 5 minutes is up. So the idea is to go back and forth 4 times within the 5 minutes to get the maximum amount of points. So I think that's what I said. So once the start order is given, the relay proceeds, enter the working, attaches the device, lift, carry, and place the water container on the other table, remove the device, place it on the table, step out of the area, then the next person comes in, puts it on, and comes back. So back and forth 4 times. Now, let's say that 5 minutes, the 5 minutes is up, and the person's on the last lap, and they're right in the middle when 5 minutes is up, and they don't make it to the end. That last run doesn't count, so it's only complete crossings that will count within the 5 minutes. Okay? Okay, so how do we score this, right? So there's a lot of different variables. There's the time, there's the how much weight was in the water, how much water was in the bucket, how much of the prosthetic arm weighed. Here's how it scores. It's not that hard. It's going to be interesting to know how we're going to score the data, because then if you're always like pressing for time, you're like getting scores in, and we're going to throw this out. Here's how the scoring works. So everybody's going to complete the task. Now basically what we're going to be calculating is the amount of water they carry over divided by the weight of their device. So it's kind of a weight ratio thing. So how much water for the weight, mass, strength to mass ratio of the arm to the amount of water you carry. Okay? So this number here will be how much the water plus the bucket, because that's going to be part of the weight, was divided by the mass of the device. That's going to give us a number. And that's what they call the team efficiency score. Okay, so then we'll calculate everybody's team efficiency score. And for the sake of argument, we'll call this example, the winning team, their efficiency was 20. Okay, so this winning team will automatically get, in the case of middle school, will automatically get 75 points because they had the highest efficiency. Okay, now everybody else will get some prorated version of 75 points. And the way you figure that out is whatever their team, say team number 5 in this case, their team efficiency was 18. Okay, so they were lower than 20. So they didn't get the highest. They still did pretty good. They were 18. So now we're going to take the ratio of their team efficiency to the winning team efficiency, which is here, 18 divided by 20, times the 75 for middle school, or times the 50 for high school, and that's the amount of points that they get.
Are you providing the bucket, or are we supposed to go out and buy?
The bucket will be there.
Okay, so it's kind of like kids don't know, is it a metal bucket?
No, so it's,
Okay.
yeah, if you go on the rules, they specifically call out this Homer's all-purpose bucket from Home Depot.
So that we can buy one and
You can go
practice
buy
it,
one and try it out, yeah. So if you go to Home Depot, it's the orange one that's got the little Homer on the front. Also, it's the bucket and the lid. So they'll fill it with water and they'll put the lid on top of it, so they don't throw water everywhere. Okay. Any other questions, Ron?
And some teams you said have 2 up to 4. So when people are going back and forth, if they have 4, does each person have to do it, or can you just pick 2 people?
At least 2 people have to do it.
So it
So
could be the same.
they can do 2, they can do 3, they can do 4. It doesn't matter.
So they
At least 2 have to do
work
it. Yeah. You gotta change. So at every end, it has to change a person. Right? It could have been like when you get over there and you come back, it was the same person as the first time, or it could be a completely new person, but it just can't be the same person walking back and forth, because there's the time of taking it off and putting it back on. So ease of putting this on is, obviously in this event, it's going to be important, because it's got to go on very fast. Right? If it takes a couple minutes to put it on, you've only got 5 minutes for the whole task.
Is there any rules on how to strap it on, so that you can carry it?
No, it's just got to be strapped onto the mid-arm. That's all it says. So if you strapped it on here, and anywhere up here, it's fine, I think. I think we'd probably question if you strapped it on anywhere to the hand, because even though we're trying to mobilize it, you're not supposed to be able to move that. So I would just make sure that the primary attachment is somewhere up here. Oh, and I left an important part of this out here. This water weight here, it's not just the water in the bucket. It's the water in the bucket times the amount of time they went back and forth within the 5 minutes. So this weight here, if a team went by, they had, let's say 500 grams in their bucket, and they went 4 times, then that would be, times 4. So that's what that weight is. I forgot that. It's only up to 4. So if you go across once, then it's times 1, times 2. So that's the first competition. It's a whole competition in itself, I think. Right? There's 2 more. So, any questions on this one? No? Okay, and I guess the competitions, even though there's 1, 2, and 3, the winners are going to be determined by the total of the competition. So if they get 50 on this one and 20 on the other one, then their total score is going to be 70, right? All right, so this is the first one. Okay, the second one is an object relocation, and the gist of it is you're going to have a bowl sitting on the table filled with black olives, and they've got to take these olives and they've got to put it inside of an elevated Pringles can. So this diagram over here represents a 6-foot table, and this represents a chair on the end of the table here, and then the little hashed area is the actual work area for this competition. So it's 45 centimeters by approximate width of a 6-foot table, 76 centimeters. On top of the table, which they're going to set up is, these are 3 Pringles cans. Okay, so 2 standing vertically. This one actually still has the lid on it, and this one doesn't. And then you've got a horizontal can, with this being the opening, that's kind of tilted up a little bit. And so that's what they're going to be putting the olives into. So you're going to have to stick the olives in this horizontal can. Okay, so 6-foot table, chair place, you got 3 of the Pringles cans. It tells you the size there, 6.3 ounce cans. The bowl, if you go on the rules, they're very specific on the products they're using. So like the Dixie Ultra brand, 20-ounce paper bowls. Even down to the olives, it says the Lindsay large pitted black olives. They give you the website and everything. I don't know for this site if they're going to use those particular olives, because the rules specifically just say at national level. So it might be up to the site on what olives they use, but I'm pretty sure they'll try to get them olives, but you might want to be prepared for that. Okay, so that's the setup. Any questions on the arrangement?
Is the Pringles cans, are they gonna be like glued together, or are they just gonna be just on top of each other, and if the hand or the arm knocks it over, then what?
Right, good question. So this setup will be attached together. It doesn't say how, it just says they'll be attached. The one thing that you can change, I'll talk about later, is when you sit at the table or when you get everything set up, you can have that opening face to the left or to the right. So you can switch that whole assembly around if you want, depending on your Prostetic Arm works. If you're left-handed or right-handed. But the way I understand it is, yeah, those things are going to be attached somehow
Oh, okay.
to each other. Although it won't be attached to the table. So if you knock the assembly over, then the time trial's over. But I don't think it's going to be possible to knock just this off of those things. They're going to be standing there freely, and so if you knock that whole tower over together, then it ends the trial. Okay, so first detail here is it says pre-inspected olives will be placed in the bowl. So why pre-inspected is we only are going to count the olives that don't have broken skin. So they're going to be nice, clean, black olives with no broken skin. So in the process of the trial, if they pick one up and they pierce it or if they tear the skin, then that doesn't count. It's a disqualified olive.
So they can't stab it with a sharp
Nope.
object and then push it off?
No, they can't. It's got to be The actual, that's a good question, yeah. So that's why it says pre-inspected olives, so the judges will have to inspect them. And now, the olive does have a hole in it, you know, they could still stick something in there
And get it.
and just pick it up, they just can't damage it. So,
much
if it tears or if it pierces or who knows. And, do you have a question?
No, so that's gonna be interesting.
Yeah. So the next one, you can select, like I said, which way you want to face the opening in the can. So if this chair is sitting here, you can have the can facing this way or that way. So this event, you also have 2 minutes to repair your device, place the premium cans in the location that you want, and the bowl will be placed in the starting area. Into the 2 minutes, device has to sit on the table, so again, it's important on how long it takes to attach it to your arm because you don't have the luxury of attaching it before the event. You have 1 minute to complete the trial, so 1 minute to put the olives in there. And again, you have 2 trials and we take the best of the 2. So the actual competition is that when the time starts, actually before the time starts, you'll have the person sitting in the chair. They can't touch the table, they can't touch the device. They wait for the start order. When the start order is given, the time starts. The person has to then attach the device to their arm, and it starts to move the olives from the bowl to the premium cans one at a time. So you can't do one at one. And then 1 minute, we call time, or if the tower is knocked over, the trial ends. It's only 1 minute to do the actual. So you get 2 minutes to get ready and set up, but 1 minute to do the trial.
And as many olives as many
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but basically, like they're putting on this like glove, and then, which is the prosthetic arm, and so still technically their hands controlling the device, or does it?
Well,
Apparently not.
so your hand's going to be, so we're going to try to immobilize the hand, right? So the idea is they're going to put a wrist guard here. I don't know if you ever used a wrist guard, but it's basically a metal piece that attaches here so that you can't move your wrist. You're probably going to be able to still twist it a little bit, but you're not.
But you can move your fingers.
And then we're going to take your fingers and we're going to bandage it.
I was wondering, how
So
am I
you're going to be
gonna
mobilized and
trigger
your
this?
fist will be basically like this.
So
So
they
you can put something over it, but you can't stick your fingers in the actual digits.
So you have to get your upper arm and shoulder.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it does say that it has to be attached to the forearm. So, I think if a team comes and it's just something they slide over their hand, we might disqualify them because it does have to be attached to the forearm. So I would make sure it's long enough that it goes to the middle of the forearm and somehow straps on there or something that indicates, yes, I've attached it to the middle of my forearm. Okay.
Do you have 2 attaching points?
Yeah, I think you can attach anywhere above here, I think is fair game. So if you got some on your shoulder, want to use this, if you go do research on prosthetic arms, a lot of times they use this motion
Right.
to do the opening and closing of the arm. So, you can use anything up here to create that motion as well. So again, at the end of the trial, we only count the undamaged olives on the score. Okay. Okay, the scoring not so complicated here. It's basically just the number of undamaged olives divided by the winning team. Take the ratio again and multiply it by either 75 or 50. So again, everything's kind of based on the winning teams. Whatever the highest number of olives, that's how we determine the ratio. So if there's a big gap, then obviously the scoring gap gets bigger. But it seems pretty fair. So in this example, the winning team somehow got 55 olives in 1 minute. Yeah. And then in team 5, they had 2 trials. The first trial they got 41. The next trial they got 45. So we'll take the 45. We'll divide that by 55, and then multiply it by the max score, which is either 75 for middle school or 50 for high school. That's how the team gets their score. Pretty straightforward. Any questions on that one? Okay, so if you're just doing a middle school team, that's it. You're just doing those 2 competitions. So for middle school, The maximum score, each one of the competitions is 75, so the maximum possible score would be 150. So if one team happens to win both events, they would get a score of 150. Yeah? If you have a high school team, you've got the third event. So this is just an example of what the letters themselves would look like on the paper. For whatever reason, in the thing they call it a prompt, writing prompt. It's basically just an 8.5 sheet of paper. And it's gonna have some phrase. Doesn't say what it is. Could be acronyms. Could be anything. It doesn't tell you. It just tells you the type of the font, and then it's an outline and the font size. So you can go and print it out yourself and practice. The setup's going to be pretty similar to the previous event. You're going to sit at the table. Excuse me. You're going to have the paper sitting on the table. Now the paper will be upside down, so you can't see what it is. And you have a number 2 pencil. Excuse me. And that's pretty much it. That's the setup. So it's going to be a paper face down, 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper with some determined phrase written on it, capital letters, and again the font. And the pencil will just be sitting on the table. The team will have 2 minutes to get ready for the trial. At the end of the 2 minutes, put your device on the table, and then you wait. Now this one's a little bit different because once the time starts, you'll have 1 minute to attach the device. So in the previous event, you didn't get a minute to do that. It's part of the time. In this one, for whatever reason, they said you got a minute to attach the device. Once the time is up, or when the person says, okay, I'm ready, because they do in 30 seconds, then we'll restart the clock for a second minute, and that's when they'll do the actual task. And again, you have 2 trials. So here's what they have to do. So the team member will be sitting in the chair, facing the table, can't touch the table, can't touch the device until we tell you to start. The judge will say, okay, you can prepare, that's the first minute. So you got a minute to get prepared. You can attach the device and put the pencil in your device as well. Once that minute's up, we then start the timer again, restart the timer. Then the person can flip over the paper, and they can flip over the paper with their other hand. So they don't have to use a prosthetic arm to flip the paper over. Right? They can use the other hand to do that. And then they start filling in the characters from left to right, top to bottom. These are just the rules, I don't know, but you can't, if you skip a letter, you can't go back and try to fill it in. I'm not sure that it really matters. There's really no penalty for skipping a letter, that I can see. After the 1 minute, we'll tell the student to stop, and then the paper and count how many letters they filled in. I guess by filled in is they have to stay within the outline of the letter. So if they go out the letter, then it doesn't count. If they go outside the outline. If they skip the letter, it doesn't count. So I'm not sure what the penalty is for skipping a letter. And scoring, same thing as the albus pretty much. In this example, the winning team had 30 characters filled in. Team number 5 in the first shot at 23, second shot at 21, so we take the 23, divide that by 30, and then multiply by 50 to get there. And that's it for the dexterity. Now the final scoring, again, as I mentioned, is for middle school. We'll take the scores of the first 2 events. So we'll take the strength efficiency, which is a 75 maximum score. The object relocation, which is another 75. So possible maximum for high school. The possible max for each event is 50. So again, still a possible maximum. That's it. Pretty easy, right? So, yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting on the, because do you know how long we're going to have? Is it still like the same time frame?
Like hours, but I don't know if this might be like one of those projects, well, because it's going to be a national engineering project for next year, it's probably going to be one of those things where the kids are going to have to spend half a day in competition with this. You know what I mean? So, like all our other national competitions, they've always been like half a day is dedicated to that.
So we'll have all the competitors there for the whole time that everybody's competing.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's gonna be interesting how long it's gonna take. I don't know, it depends how many entries we have on this as well.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect a lot this year since it's piloted, and I think to be honest, I'm sure they're waiting on results to see what needs to be changed in the rules,
Okay.
but
Yeah, we probably need to
It is
incentivize them entering this one.
yeah. I mean, we have the results in for registration, so I can send them.
Right. But you know, I think it's one of those things that can be very simple, can be very complicated, you know, and there's nothing here that says that you have to have any really moving devices on the end effector, right? I mean, you're literally just picking things up and moving them. So the bucket, you're just picking up the bucket and moving it over. So that one's pretty straightforward, I think. The olive one, I thought it would be kind of a pincher type thing too. Like you mentioned, I mean, you could just go for the hole and, or, you know, they scoop up an olive thing, you know, they sell like little olive scoopers that you can buy and scoop it up.
Another thing, Jeff, does it say anything about having detachable devices on your?
It doesn't, on the end effect, on the ends of it, it doesn't say that you can't, it doesn't say that you can, but it does say that whenever you impound the materials, that you have to impound all the materials that you're going to use. So it's kind of implied that you can have different attachments that go on your. So,
No, and another question came up, someone asked me, is it possible to use a glove?
yeah, well, you won't be able to get your fingers in there.
Yeah.
You'll be able to put your hand, your fist in there. And like I said, I guess I'm the judge. If it's a short glove and it goes up to your wrist, that's probably disqualified. It doesn't really attach to your
Kitchen
forearm.
glove, it's pretty long.
So if you're going to use a glove and you're going to stick your hand all the way in it, you got to make sure that it goes beyond your forearm to be safe, so that somehow it attaches
It's really soft.
to your forearm. Right? If you just slide a glove over your arm and just sit there, I'd probably just, it's not really attached to your forearm.
Okay.
Yeah. And the rule, you know, read the rules. It's kind of a sad story. I mean, they basically saying they're designed this for like a little kid in Nigeria that lost her arm. You know, that's the intent, is that you don't have this part of your arm, so it's going to be kind of a gray area probably, because it does say that it has to cover your fist and extend beyond it, so I don't know, it's going to be kind of a full edges, I guess.
Thank you.
All right, yeah, good luck reading those rules. I'll send this to you guys if you want it. The rules are kind of brutal.
I just need to talk about that.